This is a trigger warning for the following episode since we speak about mental health, so we will be speaking about some sensitive topics. This is also a disclaimer that we use some dark humour and bad words as well, so if this is not the podcast for you, you can scroll on, but if this sounds good to you, come in. You look amazing.
Now,
I want to be you.
Talk and you can, is this a podcast we're allowed to talk?
We can talk and you can say whatever you want and you can say bad words.
But then because I was going to say, is my stomach all right? That's Stephen. Is my stomach all right? Am I eating it all right?
You look amazing. So I like to let the guests introduce themselves.
Okay.
Which people always get a bit funny about because it's all about you and you have to be a wee bit selfish now and bum yourself up.
Yeah.
So anyone who doesn't know who Geraldine Leyden is, Leydon?
That's correct.
Yes. Who is Geraldine Leyden and what do you do?
Who is Geraldine Leyden? A mixture of bags, as everybody would say. So yes, my name's Geraldine, and I have a brand called SerenityTen. It's actually SerenityTenX on Instagram. And the reason behind the name to begin with, Jenna, is I'm in recovery. I'm in recovery 11 years, which I know we're going to talk about. Yep. But obviously Serenity Prayer means everything to me.
Okay.
And I utter it several times every single day. That prayer just brings me so much comfort. So obviously Serenity for the Serenity Prayer. I live in number 10 and I was born on the 10th of the 10th and I stopped drinking on the 10th.
So a whole lot of meaning for you?
Yeah, it's a whole lot of meaning for me there as well. So that's the SerenityTen. Now, originally I did come on Instagram I was selling clothes at the time. I had an online clothes business because I was really into fashion.
How long ago was this, did you say?
That was probably 2019 and around that.
Pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID. And literally I closed the business down within less than 2 years.
Not for you.
It wasn't for me. Right. I wasn't making money, to be truthful. I hated doing it. Probably if I had a physical shop, would have loved it because I love my fashion. I found that loads of the brands that I love and love to wear, if I went to buy them in, they're expensive and nobody was going to buy them online without trying them on.
Yeah.
And when you put something really like quick and cheap up, they flew out the door and that wasn't me. And it's not to say that you'll not see me walking around in loads of ordinary things, but I do like to buy things that last me for years and I rewear and wear. So just the whole thing didn't align with me.
It wasn't authentic
and
for
I wasn't making money.
Yeah.
Was, at the end of the day, you're not going to keep going if you're not making money.
No.
And I closed that down then and I just started doing Instagram in general. And then I started talking about my recovery. So.
Aye. Amazing. I was going to ask what the meaning of SerenityTen is because when I talk about you, I say, Geraldine SerenityTen, because that's your name on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people say, mental health and me. That's not my name, but that's how everyone knows each other.
That's right.
So you've already told that, the significance of that name.
Yeah. So that means a lot to me.
It really does now that you've told.
Yeah, but so many people don't know that.
No, I know.
But that's the name behind it. Just the meaning behind me, SerenityTen.
It's beautiful whenever you know the reason behind it. Can we jump back to your teenage years when you were growing up back in the day?
Back in
1904, was it? You think Jerry Labs is bad? I'm the female Jerry Labs.
I can take it, Diana. I can take it.
So growing up then for you in your teenage years, how was life for you then?
I would say my teenage years weren't great.
Okay. I
see them as quite dark years, depressing years. I didn't enjoy those years. A lot went on in my teenage years. I had the most lovely, simple childhood. Grew up in the country. Parents, my daddy just died recently, but my parents were together like 61 years, were married, and just, it's all sisters. I had a lovely, lovely home, lovely upbringing. But teenage years, not inside the house, but when I start to venture out of the house to go to school or take that first drink or meet boys, all of that was a very different story for me.
And why was that, do you think?
Probably just toxic relationships.
Oh, the relationships that you got into? Right, okay. I'm sorry to hear about your daddy as well. I didn't know that.
Thank you.
So sorry to hear that.
Daddy just died probably about 7 weeks ago now.
Oh my God,
so quite soon, and I was in Australia when it all unfolded. I go over to Australia for 2 to 3 months every year to visit my daughter, my wee granddaughter, and Daddy was fine when I was leaving. Daddy has his problems, he had Parkinson's. We looked after him. I share a lot about Daddy on my Instagram. We've been staying with him for the last couple of years to help Mummy, obviously. And the only difference was when I was leaving, because I go to Australia often, and he always is so happy for me. The night before I flew, I obviously was down seeing him, and he just broke his heart. He kept crying, but he wasn't sick or he wasn't dying or anything like that. And I just said, look, Daddy, you know I have to go and see my girls. And he said, I know that, but I am just so sad. I'm happy for you, but very sad for me because it's just too far away. And he never said that before. And that got me thinking. And I even told that story in the airport, kind of, you know, to everybody on Instagram, but Daddy broke his heart. It's so strange.
Yeah.
And I wasn't away a couple of days, so he started going downhill.
Almost like
and into my second week, he was in bed. He couldn't get out of the bed. They were looking after him in bed.
Right.
So I went for 2 months and I got 13 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Come back.
13 days when I got the phone call. I mean, we were in touch with him all the time. I was FaceTiming him all the time. And I had a gorgeous FaceTime call with him in the bed on his Friday morning, my Friday night in Australia. And he said that he was in the bed quite sick. And I said, well, Daddy, how's it going? And he just said, and that generation, I don't know, Jenna, but your mummy and daddy and everything else.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're younger than me, it's different. But that generation didn't tell you they loved you. And, you know, you knew you were loved.
Yes,
you knew you were cared for. You knew you were safe. But it wasn't said to you every day. Like,
no.
Jesus, mine wouldn't go to the bin, but I wouldn't be telling them I love them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's so different.
Aye.
And he just said, oh my God, Geraldine, I love you so much. And I got all emotional. And Emma was with me in the FaceTime. And I said, Daddy, I love you too, because I told him all the time. But he says, no, you don't. I love you from the bottom of my heart. And that was my last proper conversation with Daddy. He was talking, told me how much he loved me. And I said, Daddy, I'll see you, you know, really soon. I'll be home in whatever, like 6 weeks or whatever. He says, oh, why? Help of God. And that was it. And then that evening, they got the doctor out, and the doctor said, get her home, because he's not going to last very much longer. He just literally went right downhill. And I got the phone call then on the Saturday morning after speaking to him the Friday night. Yes. All that I love you stuff. I got a phone call on the Saturday morning to say the doctor said you need to come home. That's there Friday night. So heartbreak leaving my girls, because I was there to spend time with them. Heartbreak for Emma not being at home when her grandfather took ill. She can't just jump on a plane and come home. And she just booked me a flight right away. So before I knew it, I was at Sydney Airport on the flight home by myself. And I got home and I got 48 hours before he passed. Yeah.
So sorry, that's so awful.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that at all. But in the same sense as well, isn't it so lovely that you did have that conversation with him?
Unbelievable.
Isn't it?
Do you know, it's, as I say, it's not something that I could say to you was said to me very often.
No.
Out of just, that was a generation.
Aye.
And I
get that.
treasure that was my last proper words, because when I got home, he wasn't overly conscious.
Right.
But he knew I was home.
Yes.
And he would say to the girls, though they didn't tell me this, obviously, but he would say to the girls, you better get her home. You better get her home.
Okay, wanted you.
And he was having a wee family meeting with everybody as well. And they were all down and said, right, Daddy, what do you want to say to us now? And we're all here. And he says, no, you're not all here for Geraldine. It's not here. Get on that FaceTime thing. So, you know, that was all up to the recent days. But when I arrived on the Sunday, I came straight from Australia, straight to my mum and daddy's house. And he was down in the bed, and I went down to him, and they gave me a wee bit of time, and he just said, you're home. And he knew, but that was really his last words to me.
Oh, God.
And the last proper conversation was in the FaceTime.
Oh, Geraldine, that was so lovely to hear.
Yeah.
Well, not lovely to hear, but lovely to hear those
lovely
last
memories.
Words. Lovely memories.
Absolutely, lovely
and I
memories.
A bit of closure, not closure, but comfort for
100%. You know, and like I did say, and I joke with him every time I go. Like I would say to him, don't you fucking die when I'm in Australia. It's too expensive to get me home, Daddy. We always joked about that. Oh, yeah. You know, that was the way we went on. And I just couldn't believe that it happened on my trip to Australia. I mean, I never would have went. I always talked to a doctor, and I talked to the doctor before I left, and he said, your daddy's going nowhere. Go on your trip. Go on your trip. Right. So it was, I honestly feel I was meant to be there to comfort Emma.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Her other grandparents died unexpectedly when she was at home in Ireland on a visit. You know, because she's there 12 years. So she's never had a phone call to say somebody's about to pass away or die in 12 years. And she always dreaded that phone call.
Yeah.
And I was with her, but I needed to leave her to come home and be with my family to be there. And I was holding his hand when he took his last breath.
Oh, God, which is understandable as well.
And I couldn't have missed that.
Aye, 100%. But we've jumped forward a wee bit. Can I bring? Is it okay for me to bring it back again? You spoke about toxic relationships. We'll not talk about any of them. I want to talk about your relationship with your husband. At what age did you meet him?
19.
So, was that a healthy Was that your first
100%.
healthy?
I'm
Well,
not-
obviously, it
you know,
is if you're
People laugh when I say this, but I manifested the P Man. He's called the P Man.
right.
Simply because gorgeous friends of ours adopted a beautiful little girl from Thailand, Sophia. And I looked after him, was such a big part of Sophia's life, and still am.
Right.
And Sophia was in our house all the time, and she called me GiGi, so that's where I got GiGi, and
Oh,
she
yes,
called
I see.
Paddy the P Man.
Oh,
And that is where that comes from. So
That's beautiful.
everybody calls him the P Man now, and I'm GiGi. But I manifested him. I prayed for a full year from the age of 18 to I met him about maybe 19 and a bit.
okay.
I prayed every single day for a man who would be good,
Yeah.
who would love me for who I am, who wouldn't, abuse the trust, who wouldn't be toxic, because I had a very toxic relationship.
Yeah.
For a long-term relationship in my teenage years.
Okay.
And I just felt that that's the way relationships were, and nobody I met was ever going to match up.
Mhm.
And I had to get, I had to meet somebody who was good.
Yeah.
And I prayed for a year and a bit, and finally Paddy come into my life, and it's been like every marriage is. I'm not saying, but he
No.
is my soulmate and makes me laugh every single day.
That's what you need. You need fun, don't you?
Fun.
Fun as well as
Kill him
good
'cause
looking.
He's very miserable,
It's miserable.
and it keeps me really grounded.
What do you mean miserable?
Miserable, like, how would I put it?
Would
people
he
ask
just
me,
not be as outgoing and bubbly
Oh
as
my
you?
God, he doesn't even Facebook.
See,
Not at all.
but we need a bit
And I would be going all
balance.
night and say, who the fuck are you talking to tonight? Sorry, everybody, because I know I don't curse my Instagram. You should hear me cursing here because Jenna said it was okay. But I
Yes,
don't
you can
normally
curse lots and lots
I don't
and
curse
lots.
a lot, everybody, by the way. I do if you're talking to me in person, but not on camera. But he would keep me very grounded, and he would say, who the fuck are you talking to? And I would say, my followers. What the fuck followers do you even have? Do you know what I mean? And it's all that fun, and people love him on Instagram because he's never been seen.
Okay.
So nobody knows what he looks like.
Mm-hmm.
He will never come on camera, but he's always in the background giving out about something.
Right.
Or he's like a Victor Meldrew, giving out about something, and he's a very witty, funny man.
Mm.
So I haven't a clue what is going to come out, and he'll say something and it'll make me laugh so much, and then like half of it I can't put up because it's
Yes. You don't want to get
so
cancelled.
be a trigger warning. But yeah, it's that kind of relationship, and I think if you don't take each other very seriously, and like, I could easily just say to him, I fucking hate you, I swear to God. And he would say the same back. We laugh, we go to bed, tell each other we love each other, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's being honest and being able to say, you are really pissing me off, and this is why you're pissing me off.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean?
Aye. I remember a quote from, do you ever watch Sex and the City?
Oh, absolutely.
The movie. It was one of the movies anyway. And one of the girls asked, do you love him? On about her husband. And she said, every day, not all day, every day, but every day.
Yeah.
There's even if it's just a minute. It's so true.
Isn't that so true?
But not all
day. It's very
day.
funny. Like if you want something done, say for example, like I'd be looking around and I'd say, right, that ceiling needs painted, that there needs done or whatever, and it'll not be done, say.
Oh no. No,
okay,
don't
like
do it.
things like that, or I need that made or whatever, and it'll not be done. And I just then, like, it's so funny because it's so predictable in our house, and he's the only one that doesn't get it. And I look at Clina and I say, oh, Clina, I'm going to ring your wee man up the road there and get him round to paint that ceiling. He'll jump up with the chair, he'll go and get the paint and the paintbrush, and he'll start the ceiling.
That is a man thing.
Rather than paying somebody to do it or whatever. Now, we do pay a painter and having, so that was just an example I was giving you. But it's so funny. If you want anything done, you just say you're going to pay somebody else to do it, and he's up like
a
that.
shot.
So he's a very simple man. We have a lovely relationship because I travel a lot.
Okay.
I mean, I do my girly holidays. I feel that I met him very young. We got pregnant at 21. We had Emma. And, I just think that now's my time in my 50s. So I go on 3-4 girly holidays a year.
Brilliant.
We last minute cheapies. They're always we last minute cheapies. And he works away and it doesn't bother him at all. I go to Australia for 3 months. And now this time he is coming out because I'm going back out again. But lots of times he can't come out because his job is a physical in-person job. He can't do it online.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I love that fact that I could travel and do all that. But when we were first married, he was in the band. He travelled the world.
Okay.
So I was left with 3 babies while he travelled the world.
Right, okay.
So that was done, and I think it's because I was at home.
Yeah.
And he doesn't mind that now. And there's that trust, that 100% trust there.
And I think that's very healthy now as well, though. I always say if I was to get into a relationship, which is very highly unlikely again, I would love
that, Jenna, for a second.
I've been single for so long now. If a man went to hug me,
Well,
I would get him in a headlock.
Yeah, I get that. And I mean, the very thought, I think, because I have been with Paddy so long, we're married 34 years coming in October, and then we were going out about 3 before that. So it's nearly 40 years with this man. And the very thought of ever even undressing in front of another man, I cannot imagine that in my head.
Aye.
And that's how I think that would be the stumbling block for me. How does anybody ever meet anybody else because of that intimacy and stuff, stuff like that. But it's a good relationship, but it's not always plain sailing.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I can huff with him for days as well.
Yes.
And he could be the same for me. We are so different. We're like chalk and cheese. We don't like any of the same TV programs. We don't like any of the same music. He's not outgoing like I am and stuff like that as well. But we have the same sense of humour and we laugh at life.
Yeah.
The good and the bad. And he will, I think because as well, like you have to remember, this is a man who had an alcoholic wife.
Yeah.
And he stayed.
As well. Yeah.
He stayed.
Yeah, yeah.
And to me that's priceless.
That's lovely.
As well. So that says a lot about the relationship.
That you have your soulmate as well, the one that you manifested.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
He's probably the one person and the only person in life that can make me feel really safe.
Oh,
100% safe.
Lovely.
I know if there's something wrong and I say to him, there's lots of things I don't tell him. I just don't. Like he just wouldn't understand. But he is the one person that if he knows I'm down or I say something, I can go to bed knowing that I'm safe.
Yeah.
Now, more than ever speaking to any therapist or any best friend or anything, if he just says a few words to me, I know I'm going to be okay.
Women like to feel safe, don't they? And then men like to keep their women safe as well.
Yeah.
So that's the way that works. You've been very vocal as well about your alcohol addiction and being a recovering alcoholic. So also, if I use any wrong terminology, correct me and let me know, because this is all about education as well.
100%.
And this is the first time I think I'm ever speaking to someone who is
really.
No, I mean on the podcast,
right?
Just on the podcast. So if I'm wrong in anything, saying just
I have no plans of saying like I'm Geraldine, I'm an alcoholic. Like I'm a recovering alcoholic, but I'm an alcoholic. And I always say I'm an alcoholic mother.
Yeah,
and that's what I was. That's what I am, and that's what I will always be to the day they hammer the wee lid on the coffin. Because that will never change. When you're alcoholic, you don't become non-alcoholic.
Yes, because I was telling my niece, she's only 27, she's an OT, and I was telling her that you wrote, I was watching your podcast, and she was like, oh, who's this? And I was taking notes, and I said, I'm afraid to say the wrong terminology. Yeah. I don't want to offend this person. And she was telling me, I said to one of my patients once about the time that you were an alcoholic, and he cut her dead and said, I was an alcoholic, I am an alcoholic, and I will forever be one. Yeah. And she said, so there you go. And I go, well, thank you very much. So now I know that you will always be a recovering alcoholic.
And the day anybody forgets that is the day they're in danger.
Okay. Because recovery is not just gone, it's every day. Which we will get into as well. Do you remember your first drink?
100%. Very, very well.
And what age?
There's two stories there. But I was probably remember my first drink when I was 14, and there was a wee crowd of girls of us that went to the local disco, and I don't think my mum ever listened to this, so it's all right. We'll go to the local disco, and my daddy did the door and all down at it, and we decided we'd buy, I don't know who got it, but we decided we would buy a bottle of cider. Oh,
cider's everyone's first drink, isn't it?
Share it between us, big bottle of strong. We lived in the country, and we went down this wee country road, across from the pitch where the local discos were. And we drank the cider, and I am not joking you, the taste was horrible. I still, to this day, and I am 55, and that was 14, I still to this day can taste the cider. But it lit my world up. Something happened as I swallowed that liquid down and through that I cannot describe that feeling. It lit me up.
Right.
So looking now, from what I know and looking back then, there was your alcoholic trait start. Yeah. That was where it was.
The buzz was starting.
The buzz was. And my parents had a drinks cabinet still there in the living room. But my mummy and I didn't drink. My daddy had his pioneer pin for well over 60 years and was very proud of it.
Right, okay.
Nobody would have drank in our house other than the visitors, and he always kept like vodka and whiskey and things like that in the drinks cabinet for a special occasion. If somebody came in, they would get a wee whiskey or a wee vodka, but they never ever drank.
Right, okay.
So there'd be no pre-drinking in our house or anything like that.
So it's not something that you were used to.
I didn't come from parents who had a drink problem. Now, there is an alcohol problem in both the sides of the family.
Okay.
So my daddy's side, my mummy's side, there is an addiction problem.
Do you believe it's genetic as well? Because I have been doing some research, and some people do say it's genetic, and then others say that it's not genetic. What do you
100%.
reckon?
I 100%. I feel it runs in families. I have nothing to prove that to you, but my story and who I am and my family, and I 100% think it's and can be genetic. Now, that's not to say, and I don't like saying that for the simple reason that I have 3 children.
Yeah.
And I never want any of them to end up alcoholic.
No.
I never want any of them to ever go through the hell that I went through. Because you're drinking against your will, which we will talk about further on in the podcast, and you don't know how to stop. And it would break my heart to think that one of my kids had to go through silently what I went through for years. You know. But then again, I did get better, and I know they can get better. But I mean, that would be in my wishes and prayers that none of my own children would ever be alcoholic. But I do think it is.
I always knew that I would never be an alcoholic because I didn't like the taste of alcohol, and my hangovers are just not worth it.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was 18, I was celebrating my A-level results, and that was the first time I probably drank 2 bottles of wine. I must have weighed about 5 stone.
That would have killed you.
Nearly killed myself. So then I was vomiting all night under the toilet, and I was crying to my mum. I was like, I don't want to go to uni in Liverpool. I want to stay in Nikki. And she was sitting looking like this because she knew I'll never touch a drink again after that.
That's a good thing. And that was all the emotional, they call it the emotional hangover that a lot of people can't cope with.
No.
I couldn't cope with it.
Right.
And it gets very, very dangerous, the emotional hangover when you can't cope with it. As time goes on, what you'll do is you join in with what everybody else tells you, and that's get the cure.
The cure. See, I was always the opposite.
Get the cure. And when you get the cure and you find a morning drink, I will tell you now, for anybody who's listening, you will never go back. Once you get the morning drink,
that's it.
You are hooked.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, what did the typical day as an alcoholic look like for you then?
I mean, it's a gradual build-up. Like, I do say to everybody, even though I honestly believe I was always going to be alcoholic. I do believe it's genetic. I do believe that I was born that way. Okay. Whenever you do a lot of work on yourself and you finally realise that you're alcoholic and you get into your sobriety journey, then the work starts. So you realise it's not about this liquid that you're drinking. It's not about the alcohol. Yeah. It's about everything underneath that you cannot cope with reality.
Right.
So you're trying to block out, reality. So I always liked to have a drink. And as I say, starting that at 14 and remembering that feeling of it lighting up my world, I would have went into the drinks cabinet at home as a very young teenager. It could have even been before that cider.
Right.
But I can't remember exactly the time. And I would have drank sips out of the bottle of vodka raw.
Right, okay.
Now, what child does that and thinks it's normal? But I did it because it numbed something. It did something to me. And, then I'd be quaking because I'd be putting water in it. And then whenever Daddy would give it to somebody, I was thinking, God, what if they say it's watered down?
They were stone cold sober after a half bottle of vodka.
But that's the kind of thing I was doing as a very young, like a young teenager, as I would call it, so a child then. Going out, when I went out as a teenager, I never ever went out I didn't know what social drinking was. You went out to get drunk.
Yeah.
And I did get drunk as a teenager, and I did fall downstairs, and I did things that I would die if I saw my own children doing, as in falling.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank God I never was away with anybody that I didn't feel safe with, or because I was in a quite a long-term relationship then. So thank God it was a lot safer in that generation then, because God knows now where you would end up, the state you'd end up. And I always come home. I always come home to my house where it was safe, and hid it. I always hid it. So when I got married and had my first house, I thought it was amazing. I could buy a bottle of wine and be able to have my own wee glasses of wine in the house. And I was probably a daily drinker from my early 20s from I got that home. Right. Daily drinker.
Like in the morning?
No, at night. No,
right, okay.
That doesn't come too much later
So sitting watching TV at night at the end of the day?
Yeah, those triggers. People have to watch out for those triggers.
Okay.
Okay? It is not normal to drink every day.
No.
Nobody should be drinking every day. But I was doing that in my 20s. And I had friends doing it. And I had friends doing it for dinner and everything else. And that's the way it went. And it wouldn't have been a bottle of wine. It would have been a glass or a couple of glasses. But then it would have got to later on in life, years past, it would have been a bottle of wine every night.
Right, okay.
And if I didn't open the second bottle, I thought I was wonderful. Or if I left a little tiny bit, just that much in the bottle, and I woke up the next day and looked at it, I would have said, oh my God, you're brilliant. You definitely,
I'm in control of this.
I'm in control of it, no problem, because you've left a wee bit.
See, drink for me, I'm the total opposite. I've never had drink in my home. I don't think my son has ever seen me drink. I think I drink twice a year just because I don't like the taste of it.
Yeah.
And it just makes me feel
awful. I find that so weird.
That people
Don't drink.
It's all my life I get, oh, wise up, have fun, you're boring. What, have fun? Without it, I don't need it.
Unfortunately, it's even, like, and you try stopping. You try
Aye.
stopping whenever you know that you may have a problem before you even admit you're alcoholic. And you try it, you're going out, and people saying to you, oh, Jesus Christ, take a drink. Take a drink, Jordan. Why are you not drinking? And I'm making excuses. I'm on antibiotics, etc. And me miserable, because obviously I hadn't accepted it then.
Yes.
You know, I never really ever stopped for any period of time. I used to pretend I'd stopped. And I would, like, go out and not have that drink when we were having our dinner. But then I would have went home and had it when everybody else went to bed.
Right, okay.
So there's never a day that I had no alcohol.
Right, okay.
You know, but that is like, you're talking about that spiraling from my 20s to my 40s. But looking back now, from I was even a young child, the things and the way I acted and the way I felt are all alcoholic traits. Whenever you learn a lot about yourself.
Okay.
And that's why I think I was born that way, and I was always going to end up alcoholic. But it was when it was going to unfold.
Yes.
And it unfolded. Yeah. I stopped at 44 because my mind could take no more. My body probably could have, but mentally I was done.
Which we're going to get into as well. But because alcohol is so accessible, it's nearly like, oh, this is so normal. Everyone's doing this, so it's grand. I remember telling the story recently. I went to the chemist. I had a flu. And you know the Beechams that you put into the hot water?
Yeah.
So I got a packet and I says, actually, can I have 2 packets? One for work and one for home? No, we can only sell you 1 packet at a time. I says, that's grand, just give me the one. So I went down, this was 9 in the morning now. So I went down to the shop here down beside us, and the man in front of me had 2-litre bottles of vodka. So he was allowed 2-litre bottles of vodka, but I was allowed 2 boxes of Beechams for a flu.
Isn't that insane?
And that blows my mind. It's because I am so, that is so not normal in my world.
Yeah.
But it's so normal in other people's world. And he was so happy. He was so happy. And
my God.
And this was 9 in the morning, where I was sick and I had the flu. But he also knew that he was going to be eating his wee fix.
Yeah,
and that's so sad, because it's also 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. And that's probably for someone like yourself who doesn't like the taste of drink, and drink has never been a big part of your life. Yeah, that must be very hard for you to understand. Whereas to me, I know exactly how that man felt.
Yes.
And we feel we're invisible. If you're the off license at that time in the morning, which I was many a time waiting on it to open, you think nobody's watching you.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
You would do anything to get that fix and that drink or whatever. You think you're invisible.
At what point then? So obviously, as the years went by, your alcohol consumption, you'd say, increased.
Increased.
What happened?
Still daily.
Aye.
I wasn't out, you know, obviously with children, things, we brought them everywhere with us.
Yeah.
I wasn't out. I am in no way saying here that my children saw me falling down drunk all the time. Absolutely not. I'd been very well behaved when I was out.
Functioning alcoholic.
Function for a long time. I still my job, my husband, my car, my house. My kids were dressed of the best.
Yeah.
The house was tidy and clean and everything functioning.
Yeah.
But, you know, and drinking, like, in the house. It was all house drinking. But then it gets to a stage where 1 bottle's not enough.
Yeah.
You know, and that people are starting to notice and people start to say to you.
Yeah.
And it was always, like, I always refer to my daughter, Emma, the one in Australia, and she would have said to me, you know, Mummy, I don't think it's normal this drinking every night, because she'd been late in her teens then. My friends' mummies don't drink every night. And, you know, those little comments started coming in. So I started to feel a wee bit embarrassed.
Yeah.
So I would say to her, well, do you know what? You're probably right. I'll not have any. She's even to Wednesday night. Why don't you try it?
Yeah.
Now, I would have done that on those kind of few years before I stopped. And I was miserable. I had a miserable day. The very thought of not having that glass that night. And I didn't. Like, I did do it maybe for 1 week for a couple of nights. That's it. And the next week I maybe pretend I was doing it. You know, so that's where the lies started coming in. Because I couldn't function or manage without it. I needed that to look forward to. So I wasn't drinking during the day then. I wasn't drinking in the morning then. But that all catches up with you very, very quickly, you know.
When was the point then that you realised, I have a serious problem here and I need to get some help?
Probably about 6 weeks before I stopped. So it was kind of during Lent.
Okay.
Now, don't get me wrong. The Christmas before that was the breaking point.
Right.
Okay. That would have been, and it's a very important story because it's where my mind started thinking as well. My drinking was increasing throughout all those years, yes. But Emma was 21, did her degree, and as soon as she finished her degree, she left at the September on a one-way ticket, went to Australia to a boy. This boy hadn't been a big part of her life, but I always knew they met. He was like in England working, and they met whenever he came home and stuff. We didn't know him at all. He was like I want to say a local lad, but about 10 mile up the road, and I just knew she always really cared for him. And he came home, and that's kind of spring, and asked her to a family wedding. She went to the family wedding and came home and said to me, he's asked me to go to Australia in September. And, there was nothing in me was going to stop her.
Yeah.
But the very thought of her leaving, because
Aye.
I had her so young and everything else, and I had another 2 children as well. And I went up with her, and we bought the ticket, the one-way ticket, and she left to go in September to Australia. And Jenna, when I tell you, that was like a death to me.
I'd say so. Why?
I cannot describe it. And I always say, if it was a death, you could try and come to terms or do something. But I couldn't believe she was in the world and I couldn't see her. I just couldn't get my head around that. So that's when everything went uncontrollable.
Okay.
Now, it was nothing to do with Emma leaving. It was to do with my reaction with Emma leaving.
Yes.
I was always going to end up alcoholic. I'll keep saying that. My drinking was not normal for a long time before Emma left. But it really got out of hand. And I got away with it because everybody thought she is so depressed because Emma is away.
Yeah.
And this is why, I start drinking a wee bit earlier in the day and in the evening. Like if you're drinking at 9 o'clock, you go to 8, you go to 7, you go to 6. That's the way it went. And I got extremely depressed and extremely emotional when I was drinking alcohol. And I was there, as I say, I was functioning. So my kids were left to school, picked up from school, went and done their homeworks, got their dinners, but I was having no interaction with them or with Paddy.
Okay.
And everybody thought it's just because I'm very, very sad because Emma's away. And it was only when Shay said to me one day, standing at the worktop, I was making a wee cup of tea, and he says, Mama, I'm going to tell you something. He says, when Emma left to go to Australia, he says, her mommy left with her. And she may as well be there because she's not here.
Yeah.
And that broke my heart.
Aye.
And I realised that, and this was all, as I say, before the final Christmas that I drank.
Yeah.
So I still drank on. I still didn't know how to communicate with them because I was so sad. I just needed this alcohol. And the anxiety levels, everything was crippling.
Yeah.
And I told nobody and I talked to nobody.
Right.
No explanation was ever given. I just drank in silence.
Okay.
And at that stage, I had it hid everywhere.
Okay.
Okay, so I was morning drinking then when it got to it was after Christmas when the real morning drinking started. Because I'm jumping forward and jumping back.
No, you're grand.
So the Christmas came, Emma was coming home for her first time. It was only a year and 3 months she'd been in Australia, but she was coming home for holiday.
Right.
And all of my worries were coming together again. I thought she's coming. And I was going to lift her at the airport. And we pretended she was coming later. I was the only one that knew. And she came in and surprised her daddy and everything else. But anyway, I went to Dublin Airport with a friend. We stayed the night before and I couldn't sleep at the very thought of seeing her. It was just, I can't describe the feeling. She came home. I felt we'd a lovely Christmas. I honestly believed I don't know how I didn't see it, but I didn't see it.
You don't at the time?
Like I'm Mother Christmas, and I thought I had a fabulous Christmas.
Okay.
And the night before she was flying back to Australia the next day, she just started to uncontrollably sob on the sofa. And she said to me, Mommy, I have to tell you, you ruined Christmas.
Oh my God.
And if you don't do something about your drinking, I will never be home again. And that's a promise. And this, you talk about shock.
Oh my God.
Well, my heart was broke at the very thought of her telling me she wouldn't come home and see me again, but this shocked me. I didn't realise. I had to be put to bed on Christmas Eve night.
Right.
By her and her daddy.
Aye.
Now, this is what people call a blackout, right? People think a blackout is you fall down drunk and you hit your head or you're oblivious and you go out. You don't. It's literally, I'm sitting there 1 minute and I'm having what I think the crack with family.
Yeah.
And then I'm being helped up to bed and then undressed me on Christmas Eve night and put me into bed.
Right.
Now, she never told me that. I didn't know that until much later into my sobriety that happened.
Right, okay.
Because I had a blackout.
Right.
She said she came down the stairs on Christmas morning and she couldn't believe it. I was dressed to kill, going, Merry Christmas to everybody, as if nothing happened.
And they were sitting going, do you know what you done last night?
She didn't say it. But she didn't say to me, she wasn't going to ruin Christmas Day.
No.
She didn't tell me, even that night, and before she went back to Australia, she didn't say to me, because do you remember what you did? She did tell me I ruined Christmas.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how I ruined Christmas, which is mad.
Yeah.
So that happened to me, and I wasn't aware of it till much later. When I was on holiday in Australia with her in my sobriety, she told me down by the water one day, "Do you remember doing this?" And I didn't remember it. So, you know, those little things come out. So I was going to the airport. I wasn't driving. My her boyfriend's mummy was driving. And I can remember like flying up the room where the wine was hiding and sinking a load of wine into me. And I slept nearly the whole journey down. And she kept saying, "Mummy, are you okay? Are you okay?" I saw no ground. She stopped swirling and everything else. But I just did not know how to cope saying goodbye to her again at the airport. It was horrific the first time, and I knew what it would be like. And then whenever we were standing in the airport, it was time to say goodbye. And it just automatically, we hugged, and I said, "Emma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for ruining Christmas, and I promise you I will sort myself out." And I can hardly say it because I was so distraught. And her being her and just so lovely, she stroked my face like this here, and she kept stroking it, and she just said, "So shh, it's okay. It's okay," she said, "because I didn't mean that. And I will always come home to you." Sorry, I'm getting emotional here because that bit gets me every time.
It's anything to do with your children.
"I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I will always come home to you." So the wee critter couldn't even carry it out. Do you know what I mean? She was trying to show me tough love by doing it. And I came home, and I remember saying to Vinny's mum, "You wouldn't just stop at the supermarket here. We'll go back to the house." I brought 3 bottles of wine. And I got them to double put carrier bags of bread and all on top of it, and I come out, and I went home, and I drank 3 bottles of wine that day.
Just into oblivion.
Into oblivion. And that was obviously January of that year.
Okay.
So then Lent was coming up, as I say, I'm fast forwarding here, but I was having no communication with hardly anybody in my home. My friends were coming in, they were saying, "You need to cut your hair, this isn't like you, you know, you're not making an effort. Is everything okay? We know Emma's way back." But they still didn't click that it was me and alcohol.
Yeah.
I was such an actress. I could have, at that stage, I was drinking 2 bottles of wine. By the stage my husband came in for me to serve, give dinner, do dinner for the family.
You had 2 bottles of wine already drunk.
And you wouldn't have known. So that's when the drink stops working.
Yes.
So drink stops working for you. And you feel nothing, and you keep drinking on to get this effect. So you would have walked into my house. You would have known I was drinking. You'd have just said, "That poor girl doesn't look well."
Right.
But you never would have known I was drinking because I was talking to you stone cold sober after 2 bottles of wine.
When was because I know you mentioned you did hit a rock bottom and you were suicidal. You thought the only
way... And I
don't
say that lightly.
No, we don't. Remember I said
my thing,
I
know your story.
It takes everything.
And that's why it's so much relation to how you felt in that moment, because I have been there. I have 100% been there.
What did that day look like for you?
That day was, as I say, during Lent. It was a Tuesday before I stopped drinking. I stopped on the Friday morning. I had no drink on the Friday. But the Tuesday before that, I got up. And by that stage, I couldn't go down the stairs or put my feet out of bed without having a glass of wine. Okay, that's just, it was constant. Oh my God, right. So the wine was hid underneath the balance sheet bottle with a little glass. I always joke I was a classy drinker, and I didn't ever drink out the bottle, really, other than when I was a child or something like that, or younger. Paddy used to get up to go to work at 6:15, and as soon as I would hear him shutting the door, I would lean down, I would pour my little glass of wine, I would sit up in my bed, I would sip my wine, and then I would go, "Right, you're okay now. You've got your wee fix, you're okay, you're safe, and now you can go down the stairs." And I would get my legs out of the bed, and I would go down the stairs, and that was one glass then, get the children to school, sort them out, and then I would come back. At that stage, I'd given up an amazing job I had. But I was so depressed and alcoholic then that I didn't realise. I left that job, gave that job up. So I was doing bits more just at that stage, and that gave me free rein to drink all the time. So as soon as the kids were left and go to school, I would have the bottle in the utility, hid behind the microwave, and I would drink away all day. All day. Continue, but the first drink was at literally 6 in the morning.
And as soon as you opened your eyes, that's the first thing you thought
couldn't about. The very thought of trying to get out of bed, the anxiety was so crippling. Without something to help me, I just couldn't bear it. I had to have that. I was well and truly hooked. So I come down the stairs that particular morning and done my usual with the kids out to school, and I wasn't in a very depressive state. I had been thinking about it for a while, and I just sat down and I started to talk to myself like I was definitely going mad.
Oh, yeah.
And I was talking to myself a lot anyway in the lead up to that. And I was blaming God. I used to shout up to him,
Get that.
why did you do that?
Yeah.
You know, why are you letting me go on like this? And, you know, why do I hate myself so much? And just everything. But that particular morning, I felt a bit of peace.
Right.
I sat down and I thought, right, you know what you have to do. You've been thinking about it for a long time. You've it planned out. And today is your day. And I genuinely believed that everybody in my world would be so much better off without me.
Yeah.
I 100% felt that it was the right decision and that I was doing it not for me, but I was doing it for them so they wouldn't have to worry anymore. You know?
You felt like a burden.
Oh.
That's what I felt like. I felt like if I just removed myself from everyone's world, then they could all be happy and not worry about me no more. And my son would be better off without me because I thought that I was such a shite mommy, which I wasn't. I was amazing and I still am.
But how could you not see that?
We couldn't see it.
How does your mind get to a state that you feel the world's a better place without you?
Complete mental breakdown.
And it's not as if we were. Yeah, I call it a mental breakdown.
Oh, I did.
That morning.
It was
definitely a mental breakdown for me. And I sat down and I was drinking away, but I wrote letters. And I wrote letters to all the children. And in those letters, whenever I look back, and my husband burnt the letters, but in those letters, my words, I just was disgusted because everything was about me. It was, I can't believe that I'm not going to see you ever get married, Emma. I can't believe that I'm never going to be a grandmother and see your beautiful children. I can't believe, Shay, that I'm not going to know your A-level result. He was doing his A-levels. Doing his bloody A-levels. This was all going on.
You're making me cry.
Well,
sorry.
You know what I mean? And I can't believe.
Because I feel.
It's emotional.
I feel what you felt because I've been there. And I wrote the letters.
And you believe it.
Aye.
The sad thing is that we believed it and and I break my heart about suicide because I know there's people that were like you and like me that didn't get that moment and stop it.
That's what breaks
They went on ahead. And that breaks me every time because maybe they wouldn't have if they had got that little bit. I don't know what or who saved me or what, but I mean, I will tell you about what I did in a minute. And I never talk about what I was going to do.
Okay.
I've never told anybody but my husband.
Okay.
I've never told my children anything else, but they know I wanted to commit suicide. So, and they never saw the letters because my husband burnt the letters, as I say. But on the letters, it was all about me, that I was going to miss everything. So never did I say in the letter, how will you children go out into the world and tell people that you meet and form relationships that your mother took her own life? Never once did I think about how it would affect children growing up without a mother, how it would affect my mother and father, how it would affect. I never once. It was all about me. But I'm alcoholic, and alcoholics are the most selfish people you will ever meet in your life until they come in recovery.
Yeah,
and in your recovery, you get taken advantage of maybe because you're too kind, because you're making up for things for the rest of your life. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I set the thing up that I was going to do, and I was just about to do it, and I went, and I just grabbed my phone and rang my husband. Right. I just literally lifted my mobile and rang my husband, and he couldn't make me out. And I said, please come home. And he didn't realise I was this ill. Yeah. He didn't realise, believe it or not, that I was alcoholic. He knew I loved to drink. I drank too much. Never once did he believe I was alcoholic.
Isn't that crazy?
I hid it so well. Yeah. And he came home, and what he found was horrific. Okay. And I was in the middle of my breakdown. I told him what I was about to do, and he just goes, I can't do it. I cannot handle it anymore. I cannot do this by myself anymore. Yes. So he obviously did see things that he didn't talk to me about or whatever, and he lifted the phone around my parents. Right. So my mum and dad were brought up in the middle of me, curled up in the fetal position with a rosary beads. I just kept grabbing onto my rosary beads in a wee prayer book. And I just couldn't get off the floor. Right. Because I was having my breakdown. And when they came in and they saw this, I can't describe the shock, and he just said to them, I love her so much, but we need to get her fixed. Yeah. Because I love her and we need her. So help me get her fixed. What do we do? Aren't you so lucky that you had the support as well? Honestly, so lucky and so blessed. But my mum and daddy hadn't a clue. No. They never drank. My mother, her words to me were, she just went, I guess here, I have 5 daughters. Out of all my 5 daughters, I never worried about you. Yeah. Because you looked as if you had it all. Aye. Why did you not tell somebody about any of this.
Mm.
So they thought I had this lovely life, this lovely car, this lovely home, these lovely clothes, these nice handbags, and that I had it all.
Yeah.
And I was the one she didn't worry about out of her $5. And I was the one going through hell in
The
underneath.
cover-up.
So I drank on, cut a long story short, from the Tuesday. Of course, Mommy told all my sisters until the Thursday.
So you kept drinking?
Kept drinking.
Right.
Kept drinking. And obviously the word out among family.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2, 3 very good friends that I told, or that my family told, and they arrived up. And it was just like oblivion to me. I could hear them hugging me and saying, you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that wasn't the Tuesday, it could have been the Wednesday, it could have been the Thursday, but over the next period of a couple of days. But I was still having my breakdown, and I was still telling them how much I was drinking, and I was still drinking.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, Paddy called me down one night because somebody was there, and he came up to get me, and he just saw I just wasn't even hiding anymore. I was just sitting drinking a glass of wine upstairs. He said, put that away a minute because somebody's in to see you.
Right.
He didn't know what to do. He didn't want me trying to commit suicide again.
Mm. Where was someone with you at all times then?
In the house. No, not during the day.
No.
Not during the day. In and out kind of thing. But I suppose I had convinced him that I didn't do it and I wasn't going to do it.
That you'd changed your mind.
I convinced him.
You're going to get better, because I try and explain during my mental breakdown. Now, I wasn't taking drugs or I wasn't drinking or anything. It was just everything that had happened in my life. Yeah. My mind just went. But there was a stage where I was telling my sisters, you know, I am going to do this, and this is why I'm going to do it, and this is when I'm going to do it. And they were taking turns then of being with me in my house. No one was letting me be on my own. And I remember being on top of my bed one night, and my eyes were like saucers. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, but I could hear them outside my bedroom door. And the only way I can describe it is it was like my wake, only I was awake. They were whispering and going, what are we going to do with her?
Oh my God, Jenna.
Like, she's done. Like, we can't, we need to get her help. She, if we even turn our backs, she will kill herself.
And you must have felt that there was no, because I felt there was no ever lifting me out of this.
No, this is why I thought, this is why I was saying to them so normally, I was saying, sisters, if you just let me do this, if you just let me kill myself,
it's the right
then
decision.
you don't need to worry about me. You have your own families. You can't be worrying about me. And they would say, what about your son? He loves you. And I'd say, but I'm being told that I'm not a bad, I'm not a good mommy by my ex-partner as well.
Yeah.
So surely this makes sense for me to not be here anymore. And I don't need to live with this hurt and pain anymore. But now looking back, I'm sitting thinking, my sisters, God love them, what they must have been thinking.
But it's those people that that saved you. And that will always be, I always think, there was some intervention came that made me ring Paddy.
Yes.
Something.
Yeah.
Because I had been thinking of this for a long time and told nobody. But I wrote the letters and I was about to do it.
Yeah.
But I obviously I wanted them out of the road. So I was telling them, no, I'll never try that again. I'll never try it again, because I wanted them out of the road so I could drink more.
Okay, yeah.
So on Thursday night, Paddy shouts upstairs, Geraldine, your sisters are here, every fucking one of them. And I had 4 sisters, and you could hear the wee clippy cloppy heels coming in, and one pinned me down to the chair, and the other one hugged me, and another one said this, and another one said that.
Did you have a tough love one and a soft
100%,
one?
100%.
Me too.
And it was all going over my head. All I wanted to do was go and grab a glass of wine and get a cigarette and just was this all going on. I was just going, I was oblivion.
Yeah.
And my son came down in, and he didn't know what had happened on the Tuesday.
Okay.
He wasn't told he was doing this. He was 18, but that thing. But he knew his mum was very ill.
Mm-hmm.
And he came down to my girls and he goes to them, "Yous are too late." He says, "Yous all should have seen the signs that Mommy wasn't well. You should have seen that Mommy was drinking too much, and nobody did anything to help us, him, them as the children."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Yous are too late. My Mommy can't be fixed."
Right.
And that was his words that night. And then they were heartbroken, and they were trying to say, "We didn't know, and we're so sorry, and we're here for you," and everything else. So that all went on the Thursday night, and I went up to my bed on the Thursday night, and they were putting me in, some were called Sister Concilios, and obviously in Uri, didn't know what it was saying. Sister Concilios is Kiamara, it's a rehab centre. Uri, where you go to dry out.
Right.
And I obviously didn't know about that then, but they had rang and got speaking to Sister Concilios, and they were putting me in.
Right.
So they were going to try and get me sober to put me in. And they told Em everything, which I wasn't aware of.
Right.
And she was telling them, "I pay private, get her in anywhere. Doesn't matter, just sort it out, I pay private." And I said to Mummy, I messaged Mummy that night, I rang her and I said, Mummy, they're trying to put me in somewhere, and if somebody puts me in somewhere, I'll never get better, because I talk to Emma on FaceTime every day. And I said, if I can't see my children here and see Emma in Australia, I'll never get better.
Yeah.
And she says, well, I promise you now, I will let nobody put you anywhere. She says, go to bed and get some sleep. I was in bed. And I woke up the next morning and I said, right, you have two choices today. You drink and die, you drink and do the thing properly.
Yeah.
Or you don't take a drink and you ask for help. And I did not have a drink that morning, and it was terrifying coming down the stairs. I had to take every 15 minutes. My daddy had given me a number of a man, an older man in AA, and I rang that man like a while early in the morning. And he says to me, just don't take a drink for an hour and ring me every hour. I was every 15 minutes. I might have been texting that man.
Yeah.
Because I was going another 15 minutes, another hour. When I got to 8 o'clock, I felt so proud. I said, I've done 2 hours.
Yeah.
This is the way it felt to me. I've done 2 hours without a drink. And I went on all day. And my son came in from school. Didn't talk to the wee one, she was only 14. And I said to him, I've been talking to this man today, and he wants to take me to an AA meeting. And my son said, oh my God, this is brilliant. I'm going to drive you down. I said, son, I don't think you can come in with me. He says, no, I'll drive you down to Granny's, because he knew my family home and he was going to lift me there. And I said, great. And he drove me down because I was very unwell.
Yeah.
You know, drove me down to my mummy's, and he went into my mummy's and gave me a big hug before I went into this strange man's car. And I went to a meeting and I got some intervention, be it a miracle, be it hope, be it whatever it was. And I come out of that meeting and come home, and my son opened the door and met me at my mummy's, and he gave me the biggest hug. He says, I am so proud of you. And I go, Shay, how can you be proud? I just went to an AA meeting. And he says, you've no idea how proud I am. And that was just what I needed to hear.
Right.
And Emma had been texting all day from Australia going, oh, Mum, I'm so proud you're going to this meeting and blah, blah, the wee one didn't know.
Right.
And I never touched another sip of alcohol from that night. And I'm 11 years sober on the 10th of April there, just the week before last.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Geraldine, that is amazing.
But it has to be some kind of a miracle.
I was going to ask, one of my questions to you was going to be, are you religious? But I mean, from the very first word that came out of your
Not overly.
Not overly, but you have some kind of faith.
I have a lot of faith.
Yes.
I have a lot of faith. I'm very spiritual.
Yeah.
I'm Catholic. I was brought up Catholic, my children, and I get a lot of going to Mass and things. I came away for a while there. I'm back now because something happened the night that Daddy died, and the wee priest came down to our house and everything. I thought was so lovely of him. And I would have went and talked to him a lot about me drinking too much. I went to the priest a lot. This wee priest.
Such an Irish thing to do, isn't it?
Oh, the priest and the monks. The monks tortured. Father Martin tortured. He used to say to me, could you not just cut down?
Aye. Oh.
And I felt like said, Jesus, if you only knew. But anyway, yes. And then I'm back doing that. I mean, Mass means a lot to me. But I'm not that way. Like, I believe in whatever anybody wants to believe in. But I do have a spiritual thing within me. But nobody can tell me that I went from not being able to put 2 feet out of bed to going to an AA meeting and believing that I could do it and getting it first time. It happens.
Aye.
Now, loads of people don't get this and they die, but that happened.
No. Yeah.
And from there on in, and the support I have is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, my wee one, whenever I did sit her down a couple of weeks later, and I said, Claire, I want to tell you something. As you know, you've seen probably that I don't drink wine anymore. She's 14. And I said, I'm at AA. I've realised now I'm an alcoholic. And she went, oh, sweet Jesus Christ. She said, it would only be you. You're such a drama queen. You'd have to have a title, wouldn't you? You couldn't just be drinking too much and stop. She says,
no.
Don't be bloody stupid. Of course you're not an alcoholic.
So we need to
don't be saying that again. She says, you're just a drama queen, Mummy. And that's exactly was her words. She didn't believe I was alcoholic. And she didn't believe...
That's how well you masked it.
She thought I was dramatising everything. Now, as she got older, she realised, of course, Mum was alcoholic. Lots of wee things come out and things like that as well. But she didn't want to know then. And that is why I went my 7-year journey without talking about it. Only a very close circle knew that I was alcoholic for about 7 years.
Right.
And you had stopped drinking. Okay. Some did, and they probably knew rightly. But I had to watch who I told because my child was at school and I was not having anybody come up and saying to her, your mommy's an alcoholic. Or using horrible words or anything else. And it was when she was 21, I asked for her permission because the older two always encouraged me to talk about it on my Instagram. I had a following then, I had about 5,000 followers, and they kept saying, you need to tell your story. So I asked her permission, and she said, go for it. And from that day, 4 years ago. I've been talking about my addiction ever since. I'm talking about it more and telling more now and getting more comfortable about talking about it because there's too many people behind doors hiding it and too many families suffering, especially women. They're full of pride.
And I'm sure that from your coming out and with your recovery and stuff, you've opened a lot of doors for women to come to you.
Yeah, I hope so. I talk to people every day. You've no idea. I spend my life talking to people to try and get them help. I do that all voluntary. You know, I go to people, I meet people, I talk to people, I take people to meetings. I don't go to AA all the time now anymore at all, but it was a massive saviour in my life. And I would sing it from the rooftops. Not all, I need a whole other meeting to talk to you about that. Not everybody in AA is good, but when you have the right people around you at the start to tell you, don't you watch him and you watch her, don't give your phone number out, things like that. You're the right person, which I had, that old man who's dead now. And I had some very lovely, it was all men. But very lovely older men, family men that kept me right and that were to this day my close friends. There's very few women. Now AA's probably more women than men.
Right, okay. And whenever we say alcoholic, automatically we think someone lying on the street drinking the cheapest whatever it is, but that's not always true.
Alcoholics can be a lawyer. It's your doctors, your nurses, your construction workers, you know, it's from every single aspect. I know more people alcoholic that are surgeons, principals, all of that, you know, and it's life, it's high powered job and it's life, and that's what does it, you know, as well. And you know, like, and I have to say this, and I'm not saying it out of any other thing before we finish, but like my children and what I think they went through and everything else, they did so well. You know, like that wee fellow was doing his A levels. Like he's now a lawyer in London.
Amazing.
Emma's a lawyer in Sydney. Tina's our wee scientist. You know, and I always think, you know, they did that without any encouragement from me. I wasn't sitting down saying, oh, you have to get this and you have to get that. I was too busy getting them out of the road to do their homework to get me wine. And I don't know how I ended up with, but I think maybe they saw Patty and I left school early and stuff like that. I think they want to be successful, but I'm so glad that my drinking didn't affect their lives that way. Do you know?
Because they could have followed in your footsteps.
You know, affect them in other ways. It really did. But they're proud of me and so proud of how I speak out. And like none of them are into Instagram. They're very private people. But they never stop me carrying my message, which is really lovely.
See, I think it's so important. I always talk about the things that people whisper about, you know, divorce. It's not nice talking about divorce, especially when I was only 33.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, it happens, and then people are going, "Oh my God, I was the same. I was just embarrassed." It is embarrassing, but not embarrassing. That's
taboo.
Yes, that's it. And then the fact I was in a psychiatric ward for a week, you know, that's whispered about. Whereas I'm opposite. I'll say I was in a psychiatric ward. Look at how it helped me. This is, you know, this.
And Jenna, you have to keep on sharing your story. I mean, obviously, I know your story now with getting to know you more recently, finding you, and more recently, you know, listen to the podcast, listen to your own personal struggles, everything about that. If we don't do it, how are we ever going to normalise it for anybody else?
No.
Because I can tell you now, there's lots of women that haven't came to talk to me. But you have no idea how many young girls are contacting me on Instagram about their mummies drinking in the house. Break your heart. And if those mothers knew what they're doing to their children, and my children, you know, have bound to have scars. There's no doubt about it. And I always say to them, open up and say to them, if you ever want to talk, and I've done that I've stopped. But all they wanted was their mummy who didn't drink. They wanted that mummy. And that's all. You know, we've never really delved into it. I've done all the steps. I've made my amends with everybody, but they really didn't want to talk a lot about it. But I am telling you now, woman and professional woman are sitting at home drinking like me at 11 o'clock in the morning thinking it's totally normal. Because how could you not? Life's that bloody hard.
It is. But your children have the strong, amazing mommy now, the role model now. And you're amazing. You
and I always
amazing,
was confident. Bringing them up, I always was saying, you be loud and proud when you go to school. I was in a public speaking job for 15 years. I was out running like meetings and classes. I was a very, very, very successful woman out there. But drink got me and stole all my confidence, stole everything from me. That I was a wee wuthering, I was like a wee, at the very end, a tiny broken bird that could not learn how to do anything again. And that's why I wanted to not be here.
Children, we have 1 minute left.
I'm sorry.
Can you believe that we spoke for 1 hour?
I have so much more.
I know, and I have so much more as well. I know.
But you'll have to come on with me sometime. We'll get your story. Wouldn't that be nice?
Please do. Yeah, we'll do that. So I always like to end with the guest giving a bit of advice for people. So in your circumstance, some advice for someone who is in the early stages or else struggling with addiction.
I would tell them to swallow their pride, be honest with themselves, take a good look in the mirror, and ask themselves. I've questions if they want to go on my website. There's questions that they'll
I'll
ask.
link all your details.
Yeah, there's
on.
questions they can ask themselves, and they will know by answering them questions in a couple of minutes if they're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But literally, swallow your pride and speak to somebody.
Yeah.
And that's in any addiction. Whether it's somebody close to you at home, or whether it's a good friend, or whether it's somebody in the professional business. But speak to somebody, because that is the start of recovery. I'm not saying you'll get into recovery right away,
Yeah.
or you'll be at a meeting tonight.
Yeah.
But once you start admitting to yourself, do not wait until trauma hits so bad, like it hit you so bad, me so bad, that we didn't want to be here anymore. We wanted to take our lives.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, lots of people succeed. And the only thing I say you can never come back from, the only thing that is unfixable is suicide.
Yeah. No, 100%. Geraldine, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I've enjoyed. I could speak to you for another 90 hours.
Can't believe how quick it went.
I know.